Young Thug is currently home after accepting a plea deal to end his trial. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly why Young Thug accepting that plea deal will be the worst mistake Young Thug has ever made. Young Thug was initially denied any plea deals. The DA Fannie Willis was very clear Young Thug was her target, and she offered plea deals to everybody around Young Thug to testify against Young Thug. However, that changed when Slime Life Shawty took the stand to testify, and he said this.
And is there another hashtag?
Free Quay.
Him saying free Quay literally took the air out of the courtroom. Like, you could see the judge's face. She was just demoralized. Now, the reason why that's a big issue is because Quay is a co-defendant in the YSL RICO. Now, there's a presumption of ignorance where the jury is not supposed to know that a defendant is in jail, and them being in jail should serve no bearing on their guilt, which is why it's not allowed. However, Slime Life Shawty was asked to read his Instagram caption, and the prosecutors asked him to read the hashtags, and he read all the hashtags and he didn't say free Quay. Then the prosecutors asked, are there any more hashtags to read? And he said, yeah, free Quay. So the prosecutors essentially led Slime Life Shawty to read free Quay, knowing that's a big no-no. So when he did so, that's clear grounds for a mistrial, clear grounds. So obviously the defense attorney stood up and asked for a mistrial.
Now the jury has repeatedly heard about Mr. Nichols being in jail, being in prison, and you cannot unring that bell. We would ask for a mistrial. Your Honor, and I just want to briefly add that it is painfully obvious that the state is not prepping their witnesses. You can tell by the way when the witness spoke the first time and he said, oops, am I not supposed to say that? Like, oh, I had no idea, which makes it obvious that the state had not spoke to him, had not prepped them, and this has happened repeatedly. It's happening over and over again, Your Honor, and we're just not going to be able to unring 100 bells. Hold on, Matthews, before you say we have a stipulation. F, Judge, once you rule on our mistrial, right, on my motion for a mistrial.
Okay, so are you asking, what kind of a mistrial are you asking for?
Your Honor, I believe that we were goaded into the mistrial.
Okay, well, I do not believe that, because if you had seen Ms. Hilton's face when that came out of the witness's mouth, she was appalled, and I do not believe that they are purposefully trying to insert error into this trial to make y'all ask for a mistrial so that they can try this case again. I think it is continued, and I am sorry, y'all have, you know, this.
This was like the 400th mistake that the state has made. And at some point, the defense attorney stopped thinking, okay, these are mistakes. No, these are deliberate mistakes to try to get a mistrial so they can go ahead and connect all the dots and all the loose ends and come back and retry Young Thug because they're getting spanked and whooped at trial. So the judge was faced with a decision to grant the mistrial with prejudice, meaning it can't be tried again, or to grant the mistrial without prejudice, meaning it can be tried again. And this was a very difficult decision for the judge because if she grants it without prejudice, right, she grants the mistrial, well, then that essentially feeds into the prosecutors and they win. And now the defense is going to appeal, take it to the Supreme Court, file all type of like motions to get the judge off the case. So just like, okay, listen, there's no solution right here regarding a mistrial that will be a fair solution, right? Because there's no way for us to tell the prosecutors are doing this on purpose. And if y'all believe they are and we grant a mistrial and they retry you guys, well, then like you guys will get retried again. And like, that's not fair to Thug, you know? So let's pause trial and let the defense and the state, let y'all come together and try to figure out plea deals. So after days of negotiation, a plea deal was reached between Young Thug and the state.
Participation in criminal street gang activity, how do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, how do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, how do you plead?
No law.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge, how do you plead?
No law.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun, how do you plead?
Guilty.
There are two types of plea deals, a negotiated plea deal and a non-negotiated plea deal. Negotiated means you and the state came to a conclusion on what the plea is and you'll present them to the judge. If you and the state cannot come to a conclusion, the judge will give out the sentence on a non-negotiated plea deal. With Young Thug and the state, through days of negotiation, they couldn't come to an agreement. Young Thug felt like the first state offer was 15 years, you get off on time served. However, there are restrictions. Young Thug felt like the restrictions of his post-release was just too much and he couldn't do it, so he declined it. So when they went to court now, the state, after offering Young Thug a 15-year sentence that he turned down, they go in front of the judge and they start asking Young Thug to serve 25 years in prison of a 45-year sentence. They wanted to bury Young Thug and it didn't make sense because y'all just offered him 15 years.
At this time, the state is making a recommendation of 45 years with 25 to serve in custody, followed by 20 on probation, subject to the special requirements of 1615 the gang statute. Mr. Williams, did you discuss the state's previous offer with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. The total sentence was 43 years to serve, with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 23 years in prison, which would have been served in confinement, except that if defendant had complied with the special conditions of probation imposed as part of this sentence.
Would have been, yes, Your Honor, Mr. Williams would have been released today for 15 years on probation. If he successfully completes that probation, then he would not have to go to custody. If he did not, he'd face probation revocation as well as 23 years, as a court said, backloaded in the Georgia prison system. But we could not come to terms on all the conditions that the district attorney was insisting upon.
Okay, all right.
But the crazy part about all of this is after Thug denied or declined the prosecutor's plea deal, Thug went in front of the judge for the non-negotiated plea deal, and he got just about the same plea deal. The only difference is that the post-release conditions is a tad bit more lax, if you want to call it that. So the judge sentenced Young Thug to 40 years with the first 5 years in prison commuted to time served, so Young Thug could go home that particular day. Now, it will be followed by 15 years on probation, followed by 20 years backloaded, and that'll be very important, and we will explain that 20 years backloaded very shortly. Upon successful completion of the full 15 years of probation, the backload portion of the sentence will be commuted to time served. Upon service of 5 years in prison commuted to time served, followed by 15 years of probation, followed by 20 years backloaded prison, and upon successful completion of the full 15 years probation, the backloaded portion of the sentence will be commuted to time served, provided that the defendant shall comply with the conditions of probation imposed by the court as part of his sentence. Young Thug gets out today, and he's on probation for 15 years. And if at any time within that 15 years, Thug messes up and violates the conditions of his probation, Thug has to do 20 to 25 years in prison. Those are Young Thug's term of release. Somebody who has gone their entire life being a criminal, doing crime, getting in trouble, now has to live 15 years without any incident, or else they get 25 years in prison. Now, here are the conditions of Young Thug's sentence, or his probation conditions. Following his release, Young Thug has 48 hours to figure out where he's going to stay, because it's not going to be Atlanta. He's banned for 10 years. He can only come back unless it's for funerals and weddings for family members, and it's very specific family members too. He can't just claim anybody as a family member. Now, also too, Young Thug is required to only come back to Atlanta when he has to do some civil duty. So apparently they are requiring that Young Thug has to do a live anti-gang and anti-gun violence presentation 4 times a year at the middle schools and grade schools all around Atlanta. Right? They also said that Young Thug has to perform 100 hours of community service. Young Thug cannot be around any known gang members. Anybody, so I mean rappers, meaning he can't do songs with the local drill rapper who done popped off. He can't do no shows. He can't tour with other gang members. Yo, Young Thug has to essentially walk a line where it's like 99.9% of the people who were in his life before jail, he can't be around them. And this is insane, right? It continues. Young Thug cannot promote any criminal street gang at all. That right there, like, is very vague, right? Because what do that mean? Is Young Thug rapping about YSL? Is that right there a probation violation? Do Young Thug have to drop his label name YSL from all of his mixtapes and songs? Like, what does that mean? Right? They also say Young Thug can't rap about anything gang or street related. Excuse me? That's his entire catalog. Young Thug cannot utilize any hang signs or gang terminology. Look at this is absolutely insane. Thug cannot promote any criminal street gang. He cannot utilize any hand sign terminology or language that promotes or represents any criminal street gang directly or indirectly. Right? Yo, he's absolutely cooked, right? And and then it's obviously, like the ones like with firearms, he can't be around firearms. Can't be anywhere around it in his household, et cetera, right? He cannot knowingly engage in any form of contact with the victims listed in Fulton County indictment, et cetera, right? He may transfer his probation out of state, but y'all get the picture, bruh. It's very strict. The deal is so bad, especially when you put it into context. Young Thug and his team of attorneys was winning this trial. The prosecutors was in a very bad spot. They have made too many mistakes. They looked out of depth. They looked like they weren't prepared at all. It looks like they were making mistakes on purpose to try to get a mistrial so they can try Young Thug again and tie up some loose ends. If trial was to continue, his team of attorneys was absolutely confident they would have won this trial. So to be that confident and to have your client take this deal, it doesn't make sense whatsoever. And you took a bad deal when your attorney, who essentially is being credited of getting his client off a life sentence to being released today, when that attorney who's being praised on social media leaves court and he's not satisfied regarding the conditions his client accepted, you got a bad deal.
As far as how Jeffrey's feeling now, he knows my feelings, which I'm not going to reveal for attorney-client privilege, but this is not the same as a not guilty verdict. That should have been rang. But nobody here wakes up every day on a concrete floor that they're calling his bed, gets up at 4:15, gets shackled at his feet, his waist, and his hands, comes to the Fulton County Courthouse to be on concrete, eating out of a bag. Doritos is his meal of choice. And then coming to a courtroom and sit there with a leg chain on him every single day and hear lie after lie. So for Jeffrey go home today and not have another 90 days or 120 days of it, he is very happy, thankful to the Honorable Court. So to answer your question, this was not what I wanted. I don't believe that it is just, but I believe that under these circumstances, it is justice for Jeffrey Williams, and he is delighted, as are we, and thankful.
It's bad when your own attorney is letting you know, I wouldn't have advised him to take that deal. It's horrible. And he only did it because he was in a position where he wanted to come home today. They hoodwinked him. Your own attorney's admitting, hey, bro, he got hoodwinked, man. Like, this deal was terrible. But, yo, when you put somebody through these horrible conditions for 2 years and then you offer them to come home to a comfy multi-million-dollar mansion today, they're going to take the multi-million-dollar mansion regardless of the deals, regardless of the stipulations, regardless of the conditions. Young Thug's own father is unhappy about Young Thug accepting a deal and not taking it through trial.
Great that he's going home. I feel great that he's going home, but at the same token, I still wanted to fight. But that's his decision. That's his decision. You know, on the other hand, I raised him to be the man that he is. You know, I've always been in his life from a pup to now. And I'm gonna continue to be in his life. You know, and as an adult, he has to make his own decision.
And
you know,
do you live here in Metro Atlanta?
Yes, I do.
So how does it feel to hear that he's not allowed to be in Metro Atlanta?
I'm totally against that because this is where he's from. You know, and to have a district attorney take that away from him that isn't a resident from here. She's from another state.
This will prove to be the biggest mistake Young Thug has ever made, because Young Thug was essentially a year and a half away from complete and utter freedom. But instead, Young Thug traded that in because Young Thug got desperate. He wanted to come outside, be home for Christmas. And Young Thug essentially traded that year and a half away from utter complete freedom. He traded that in for a 40-year sentence, which he's undoubtedly at some point going to mess up. I hope not, but he's going to mess up at some point, and he's going to have to do 20 to 25 years in confinement, in prison. The prosecutors knew what they was doing. Probation is designed to send criminals back to jail. Probation isn't designed to help them clean up, to help them, like be reformed. No, probation is literally the design to keep them in jail. Look at Meek Mill. Yo, Meek Mill got on probation at 18 years old and was going back to jail at 28 for doing a wheelie on a bike. So it's just, listen, people are celebrating Young Thug is home, man, but this is going to be the worst mistake Young Thug has ever made. I can almost guarantee it. Y'all let me know in the comment section, what do you guys feel? And if you're still watching, man, click on this video right here to find out why. I believe, man, it's time to throw away the entire Christian Rock family. They're out of control. Click on this video here to find out exactly what I'm talking about. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.